Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I begin by thanking the Honourable Member for Newport West and Islwyn for opening this debate, and indeed for her work as the Chair of the Welsh Affairs Select Committee. As she mentioned in her speech, we do work as a team for Wales on the committee, and it's good that we have this opportunity today, not only to talk about the work of the committee, but also to the wider House about the wonders of Wales and how great St David's Day is. Madam Deputy Speaker, St David is famous for having said that we should do the little things, and it is in that spirit that I would like to dedicate my speech to small businesses, which, as is the case across Wales, forms the backbone of our economy. And in my constituency of Ceredigion Preseli, as much as 81% of businesses are classified as small businesses, making it the small business capital of Wales, an accolade that we are very proud to hold. 35% of those businesses are in the agricultural, fisheries and forestry sectors, and some 15% are in the hospitality and tourism sectors. And although the winter months are always quite difficult for those industries, in recent weeks I've had a chance to meet with a number of small business groups from Aberystwyth in the north to Fishguard and Goodwick in the south of my constituency, and unfortunately they've all told a tale of some difficulties and challenges that they're facing as small employers. And I think I should like just to draw the House's attention to these concerns, that there are cumulative pressures that are having a real severe impact on their ability to trade, and indeed their ability to continue in business. And they've cited to me the impact of rising energy costs, of higher employment costs, and indeed the burden of increased business rates. And although this is not a problem that's unique to Ceredigion Preseli, it's found out by the Federation of Small Businesses, it's equally true across the UK. And indeed, according to research by that body, it's estimated that from April this year, the typical high street business will face some £25,000 extra in employment costs, £1,600 in higher energy standing charges. Now, we all agree that this sort of incessant rise in costs in small businesses is simply unsustainable. And unfortunately, too many are now citing that the pressures have become so acute that 35% have said that they are planning to close or contract over the coming year. Now, this would be devastating for economies across the United Kingdom, but specifically in the small business capital of Wales, that is Ceredigion Preseli. And so, in the spirit of doing the small things, and in advance of the spring statement next week, I thought I'd draw the attention of the House to some measures that these businesses have suggested the government could take to help them build a firmer and more prosperous future. On our energy costs, businesses with an annual electricity consumption of around 40,000 kilowatt hours, which is a typical small restaurant, gym or cafe, currently look at a potential rise in their standing charge of some 40%. Now, one proposal potentially the government could entertain is to mirror the support that it is offering for household bills to that for non-domestic bills. And that is, of course, the 75% reduction in the renewable obligation costs from energy bills for businesses. That would offer much-needed support to many of the businesses in Ceredigion Preseli. Another point that they wanted me to raise was the pressure, or rising pressure of employment costs. And indeed, between January of last year and April this year, an employer of, say, 9 people on the national living wage will see that annual employment costs increase by an equivalent of 12.9%. And the employer national insurance bill over that two-year period would have increased by some 46%. One proposal that they've suggested that the government could entertain next week is actually to uprate the employment allowance so that it continues to cover the employer's national insurance contributions of 4 employees on the national living wage. That again would offer such great support to the businesses that I've spoken to in Ceredigion Preseli. And then the final thing, of course, is business rates. And I know colleagues from across the House will have had a lot of concerns in their post bags and inboxes in recent weeks. Now, it is for the Welsh Senedd and Welsh Government to look at the reliefs and how they offer additional support to small businesses. The one thing I think would be worth this House and this Government considering is the way in which the valuation process actually operates. So one common concern of businesses is that it lacks transparency and clarity as to how valuations are actually calculated, with some businesses in hospitality and trade, for example, citing that their rates are primarily driven by turnover as opposed to profitability, whereas in retail is primarily fixed on the square meterage of their shops. This inconsistency is troubling, but also the lack of clarity in terms of how the Valuation Office Agency, as it was, has come to calculations is causing quite a significant degree of concern. Now, the measures that could help specific businesses, and I shall mention these before I close, Madam Deputy Speaker, relates to the tourism and hospitality industry. A concern of theirs has long been the rate of VAT in the UK. It's currently set at 20%, and again, they would be really, really grateful if the government could look again at the rate of VAT. To decrease it to 15% would offer them much needed breathing space to withstand some of these increased pressures and costs, but also the opportunity to invest in their businesses and in their staff, something that we all know we want to see if we are to bring about economic growth across the land. And indeed, other countries have shown that when you do reduce the rate of VAT for tourism and hospitality, it can bring about significant benefits. And then the other point that I'd like to raise is that the removal of the automatic 10% wear and tear tax allowance for childminders that comes into force from April this year. Childminders in my constituency have long been used to meet the cost of the inevitable damage and maintenance cost that arises from hosting their businesses in their homes, and have told me that the move to this new system really is forcing them to reconsider their ability to continue in this critical and key sector. So if the government could look again at that, I know there'll be a lot of childminders in my constituency who would be very grateful to them. And of course, this is all important because for rural constituencies such as mine, if we don't have small businesses offering that economic growth, offering those employment opportunities, but of course for rural areas such as the Honourable Member from Monmouth and mine, the outflow of young people is a big concern. And in my part of the world, the last census, 6% overall decline in the overall population is a real worry for us. And so that's why it's so important to ensure that we support these small businesses. And in closing, Madam Deputy Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to brandish my constituency's links with St David. He was, of course, born just to the south of my constituency boundary in the area of St David's, but he was, according to legend, raised along the Ceredigion coast, and of course, as the Honourable Member for Newport West mentioned, performed one of his most famous miracles in the village of Llanewi, Brefi. And, if I needed to really underline his Ceredigion credentials, he was the grandson of a Ceredigion king. And perhaps because of that, we have so many St David's events across Ceredigion Preseli, from parades in Aberystwyth, Cardigan, Fishguard-Gwdig, as well as the towns of Lampeter, Tregaron and Aberaeron. The ladies of the Celtic longboats at Aberporth did the voyage from Aberporth to Llanon, the village which is named after St David's mother, Non. And there, of course, the cawl evening held across my constituency, and the Eisteddfods this weekend in Swyddfynon and Crymych, but also schools across the constituency. I should just like to place on record my gratitude to all those community volunteers and community champions who put on these events and ensure that St David's Day is a very joyous occasion. And if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, wish you a very Ddadl Dydd Gŵyl Dewi hapus.
Thank you so much.